very much, and for everyone joining this event. My name is Anthony Davison, and I started Big Barn 20 years ago, as you've just heard. So what we'd like to do is talk you through how our ambition to try and fix the food industry. Tracy and I have been trying to fix the food industry for over 20 years, and we really hope we can get involved. We've included lots of videos to tell the story, and as Tracy's videos are much better than mine, I'm afraid I'm going to do most of the talking. So what we'd like to do is go through the classic where we are now, which in my opinion is a pretty awful place in the food industry, and we're in danger of following the USA, where 40% of food is wasted and the food system is effectively bankrupting the health system. So we're going to do a lot about where we are now, and then where do we want to be, and how we're going to get there together. So what I want to do first is give you a bit of background by showing you a short video about Big Barn. Whoops. Big Barn is a non-profit and has been trading for 20 years with a mission to fix the food industry through direct trade. It cuts out the middlemen and retailers who take roughly 90p in every pound we spend on food in the supermarket. Big Barn provides a constantly updating shared local food map where 9,000 businesses have icons and a web page, and 600 have shops in an Amazon-type marketplace. Thousands of people type in their postcode every day and click on icons to find out what is in their area, and to encourage more production. You can join your local food industry by getting an icon on the map, or grow food in your garden or school, to crop for the shop, marked as a carrot flag on the local food map. Join in as a consumer to find local food, a producer outlet to win customers, or if you know a website, join as a partner to promote and add to the map. Please tell your friends about a better, more sustainable way to buy food. So that's Big Barn, and now Tracy's going to introduce Farms Not Factories.
Okay, so Farms Not Factories is basically because I believe that there's a corporate takeover of our food industry that's sucking all the profits out of the pockets of our small-scale, sustainable, high-welfare farms. And basically, if you include the true cost of factory farms, smaller, more sustainable farms would be cheaper. But at the moment, we're having a system which is very, very dangerous in terms of food safety, animal welfare, environmental protection, and our rural economy, as well as our soil. So basically, we are urging people through film to only buy meat from high welfare farms and to spread the cost by eating less but better meat.
So now we've got a film about the disease, and COVID-19 has really made this even more obvious. So here we go.
Over the last few decades, hundreds of human pathogens have emerged at a rate unprecedented in human history. Emerged from where? Mostly from animals, the original source of nearly all major infectious diseases. Tuberculosis, for example, is thought to have been acquired through the domestication of goats. Measles also jumped from goats or perhaps sheep. Smallpox seems to have been the result of camel domestication. We domesticated the pigs and got whooping cough, domesticated chickens and got typhoid fever, and domesticated ducks and got influenza. Leprosy came from water buffalo, the cold virus from cattle or horses. How often did wild horses have the opportunity to sneeze into humanity's face until they were broken and bridled? Until then, the common cold was presumably only common to them. But wait, animals were domesticated thousands of years ago. Why all these new diseases now? We are changing the way animals live on a global scale. The AIDS virus is blamed on the butchering of primates in the bushmeat trade. The mad cow disease was because we turned, cows into carnivores and cannibals. SARS and COVID-19 have been traced back to the exotic wild animal trade. But our last pandemic, swine flu in 2009, arose not from some backwater wet market in Asia, but was largely made in the USA on industrial pig operations in the United States. Thankfully, swine flu only killed about 500,000 people. Next time, we might not be so lucky. COVID-19 may just be a dress rehearsal for an even greater threat waiting in the wings of chickens. In 1997, a flu virus called H5N1 was discovered in chickens that would forever change our understanding of how bad pandemics could get. So far, it's remained largely a disease of poultry, not people, but of the hundreds of individuals who have become infected, more than half have died. A flu virus with a human case fatality rate exceeding 50%. What if a virus like that were to mutate to acquire easy human-to-human transmissibility? The last time a bird flu virus jumped directly to people and caused a pandemic, it triggered the deadliest plague in human history, the 1918 pandemic that killed 50 million people. The deadliest plague in history had a 2% death rate. What if we had a pandemic infecting billions with a virus like H5N1, where death was more like Ebola, a flip of a coin? But the good news is that there's something we can do about it. Just as eliminating the exotic animal trade and live animal markets may go a long way towards preventing the next coronavirus pandemic. Reforming the way we raise domestic animals for food may help forestall the next killer flu. The unprecedented emergence of H5N1 and the 10 other bird flu viruses newly infecting people around the world has been blamed on industrial poultry production. When we overcrowd tens of thousands of animals in these cramped, filthy football field-sized sheds that will lie, beak to beak or snout to snout atop their own waste, it's just a breeding ground for disease. The sheer number of animals, the overcrowding, the stress crippling their immune systems, the ammonia from the decomposing waste burning their lungs, lack of sunlight, lack of fresh air. Put all these factors together, and we have really the perfect storm environment for breeding these so-called super strains of influenza. The American Public Health Association has called for a moratorium on factory farming, and maybe COVID-19 is the dry run we needed, the fire drill to wake us up out of our complacency to reform the food system before it's too late. In this new age of emerging diseases, we now have billions of feathered and curly-tailed test tubes for viruses to incubate and mutate within, billions more spins at pandemic roulette. We may be one bushmeat meal away from the next HIV, one pangolin plate away from the next killer coronavirus, and one factory farm away from the next deadly flu. Along with human culpability, though, comes hope. If changes in human behavior can cause new plagues, maybe changes in human behavior may prevent them in the future.
So the way to change human behavior is basically for all of us to only buy meat from high animal welfare farms.
We tend to think our bacon comes from farms like this. Is 3/4 of the pork eaten in the UK has been produced in factory farms. Cramming into very, very confined spaces, obviously completely unacceptable.
But you don't have to make it just suffer like that.
I eat meat. But for me, the meat of animals that have been raised inhumanely, cruelly, somehow seems to take my own humanity.
To keep them alive, they need routine doses of antibiotics.
Antibiotics overuse is causing antibiotic-resistant diseases in pigs that can then pass to humans.
bringing us ever closer to the end of antibiotics as a cure for human diseases.
Cruelty to pigs is also cruelty to humans.
We're not asking you to stop eating bacon, just to eat bacon that comes from a natural, cruelty-free environment.
I decided to only eat meat that is marked RSPCA assured or has the words organic or free range on the packet. Please do the same.
Turn your nose up to pig factories. Turn your nose up.
Turn your nose up.
Turn your nose up at pig factories.
Even when the law is out there to say that these farms are rotten, it's being broken. And in the film that I'm going to show you now, where I went round a factory farm in the UK, you'll see where we're actually breaking the law in this country. But the thing is that if we upheld the law in this country and they're not upholding it in the rest of Europe, then our farmers would be undermined. So we have to do this together, or we have to protect our farmers and say no to the cheap imports.
I hope everybody's gone home, so we're not caught. The mother pigs are in these crates for 1 week before they give birth, and then 3 to 4 weeks while they suckle their babies. This pig can't get up. It's tried twice, and this is legal. It's really horrible the way these babies are born on those slats. This is where the mother pig is kept when she's not in the crate. Dark, dank, no manipulatable material, which is illegal. When the pigs are raised in these sort of conditions, they'd scratch, they'd bite each other's tails off. And this farmer has simply cut the tails off. Now that is not allowed. What's that fox doing? Oh my God, he was eating the dead pig. And dead piglets are being devoured by maggots. Sheds like this become a breeding ground for antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So this is leading us ever closer to the time when antibiotics won't work as a cure for human diseases. Only by high welfare meat, RSPCA assured, outdoor bred, free range, or best of all, organic.
So that film shows the impact of factory farms on our health and on animal welfare. But the next film talks about how the effluent, that if the animals were outside, is a very good fertilizer. But when they're trapped inside, it has to be stored in massive lagoons, and then it's sprayed on the land. And then when it rains, it trickles into the watercourses locally.
Huge industrialized farms are being built across the UK, forcing our smaller farms to either get big or get out. The mountains of slurry from animal waste that comes from factory farming has to be spread on the surrounding fields, polluting soil and water and killing fish.
The most basic thing it does is remove oxygen from the water. Fish can't survive with no oxygen.
We're not meeting our water quality targets. There is a severe problem with slurries and slurry spreading. And within that framework, we have then these proposed pig farms coming along.
If these factories do get to go ahead and keep spreading and spreading, my grandchildren will never even know what a salmon looked like.
The word gets out that that place isn't clean. Don't go there. Go somewhere else that's clean. And that's not a good thing for us to be having.
We can bring an end to factory farms by refusing to buy their products. And if you eat meat, by only buying meat with a high animal welfare label, RSPCA assured, outdoor bred, free range, and best of all, organic. Please help close the door on any more factory farms by signing our petition.
So basically, the next slide just shows lots of indoor cows that are, have you got the next slide? Yeah, that are eating grain. Now, basically, the land that's growing that grain should be feeding human beings, and those cows should be on pasture. And so we think that it's incredibly important that you look for pasture-led raised meat whenever you buy meat whether it's the supermarket or when you go out to dinner or you're picking up food from the high street.
Great stuff. These people we've had so far are fantastic influence and all raising knowledge to what's going on in the food industry, which is what we really need. The other important factor that is that we've got a food system that is very confusing. And when we spend £1 on food, it actually costs £2 when you add back the subsidies to farmers, the soil degradation and the environmental damage, the cleaning of waterways, and the fact that we're all getting so unhealthy, or that 20% of the NHS spend is on food-related disease. So when you count that in, it's ridiculous. And the government have got this subsidy system that actually helps unenvironmental farmers rather than organic farmers. So we need that to change. Can you tell us a bit about US imports and what's happening in the Commons, Tracy?
Yes, so the government is saying that with Brexit, we're going to have public money for public goods, which sounds great. But what really worries the farmers is that if they do a trade treaty with America, where the standards are much lower than British standards, how on earth are our farmers going to compete? So basically, there's an enormous amount of publicity at the moment because they're voting on Monday in the House of Commons. And what George Eustace, the Minister for Agriculture, is saying is that he's not going to listen to the Lords, and he's going to still prevent the amendment in the agricultural bill. But really, we do need that amendment because it would make it actually law that no imports come into this country that are below the standards that our farmers are made to produce the food that we eat. So those standards have to be upheld, and you cannot have cheaper, lower standard imports. So please write to your MP, particularly your Conservative MP, because they're the ones that are putting our farmers at risk because they want a trade agreement with America.
It seems common sense to me that if a product is illegal to produce in this country with our standards, the product should be illegal to sell in this country, so it shouldn't be allowed in. It seems to be common sense to me, but these trade deals seem to be very important, and it's really annoying that the government saying, "Oh, we'll let the consumer make their minds up," when the consumer doesn't know what's going on. So, moving on, the great thing now is that with COVID, we've seen a lot more traffic to our map, and people with Extinction Rebellion and all the environmental and climate change, people want change, and it's really good that we've finally got a load of people out there that want to see some change, so we've got to help them do it. So where do we want to be? I'll quickly go through these slides. We want to be in a place where consumers know what they should be buying, they know how food is being produced, and they're buying the best food and they're cooking with it, and they're more enthused about cooking healthy meals. We want there to be lots of local food hubs, food celebrations to get people enthused about food, and a lot of people growing food at home and swapping and trading in it, and at school as well, especially, and we'll show you a video about that in a minute. If kids can get growing food, they become more enlightened and know a lot more about food and cooking. And we want farmers to be growing food for communities instead of commodities for world markets. At the moment, if you buy food in a supermarket, for every £1 you spend, on average, the farmer only gets 9p. And it gives no incentive for farmers to grow food for local people. So if we can get some direct trade, perhaps we can increase that. Every £1 you spend on food is actually 50p going to the local farmer. And that's to do with direct trade and getting these food systems going. And in the technology age, we can do lots of data sharing, community building, and knowledge systems. So that if a farm shop or a farm hub is set up in Bedfordshire, then a farm in Cambridgeshire can follow suit, and they won't be competing, they'll be helping each other. So there's a great time with technology to make these things happen. So how do we change a food industry that's gone so far in the wrong direction? So we've been working on this for a long time, and we see this as a virtuous circle. There's three main parts of this. One is knowledge, and we've seen these videos that have been brilliant for raising knowledge and awareness to what the food system is doing. The more knowledge that we have, the more likely we are to buy the right food. Then there's trade. The more trade we can get going locally, the more farmers will be encouraged to grow food and to swap their knowledge with local people. And then we need buy-in, and the more buy-in we can get, the more people will be shopping locally more regularly and telling their friends. So there's this virtuous circle that if we can get all these going, it'll empower people, and it'll get a local food industry which is much more sustainable going. So first, knowledge. I mentioned Crop for the Shop in schools a minute ago, and this is a project we ran in Leicester, where we got our biggest influencers, and who are our children, to learn about food.
Guys, look! We might find some down here!
These children from Woodstock Primary School are on the hunt for veg.
That is massive!
Now, if you pull them really hard, what do you think is going to happen? That's right, and we want to try and take them to the shop with the nice green leaves on top.
They've been growing a range of vegetables, including potatoes, beetroot, sweet corn and carrots since March. And today it's time to harvest their crop.
Look, I found one!
It's a project organised by the social enterprise Eco Kids and the community interest company Big Barn.
The really important people, which are the children, are getting interested in food, finding out about growing it, cooking it, and then they've got this little incentive of making some money.
But before making any money, they need to collect all their stock, and some are proving a bit difficult to get out of the ground.
It's still not coming out.
Then once all the carrots and beetroot have been harvested, it's time to tag them up and get them down to their local store.
I feel really proud for them because they've worked really hard throughout the whole project, and it's just really, really nice and really rewarding for them, I think, to be able to come along and sell their produce, and not only for them to see, but for their family and the local community to see as well.
As the produce is selling so well, it doesn't take long for them to reap their reward. Jonathan Cecil.
So that was just a fantastic project, and it lasted for a year, and we managed to change the kids from, oh, I hate carrots, to, oh, I'm going to grow these are delicious, and I'm going to get my mum to eat them because she's really unhealthy. And God, what a difference that would make if all our children were like that, and growing food, cooking it, and influencing their parents and their grandparents, their brothers and sisters. What was really annoying was at the end of the year, we handed all the teaching notes over to the teacher and said, look, there's your veg patch. We've planted your fruit trees. We've got your chicken. And she said, I'm not doing it. It's not on the curriculum. And it was just amazing because we managed to get a lot of curriculum subjects like percentages and photosynthesis into the veg patch, and the kids got them just like that. And some of the kids with special learning needs were just thriving. And to me, it was incredibly frustrating, especially when I found out that over half our schools have a veg patch or a garden and can easily do this with the notes that we gave them. So we got to work on that, and that's a huge part of knowledge if we can make that happen. Now the next bit is back to Tracy with this video from Jerome again that I'm going to play, and then we'll talk about it.
Although Tesco's finest fresh pork is RSPCA assured, much of their own brand pork is still sourced from factory farms, which mistreat animals, overuse antibiotics, and spread excess waste on fields, polluting air and water and poisoning local wildlife. The campaign Farms Not Factories went to the Tesco shareholders meeting to urge the board to stop sourcing factory farmed pork and only source from farms with RSPCA assured standards or free range or organic. I joined the campaign at a Tesco store in London to ask customers if they would like to see Tesco improve their welfare standards.
I think the taste of the meat would be better when the pigs are out on the roaming on open fields rather than being trapped in pens.
This one is terrible. To keep animals in such conditions as this.
It's horrendous, isn't
it?
it?
Look at it. There's a mother pig.
Yeah.
And she's so contained she can't move.
And animals do have feelings and emotions, and they're in high stress situations.
And these pigs will never see the light of day.
I think it's appalling, these kind of conditions. I personally don't buy meat from any supermarket, definitely not from a non-RSPCA.
It's barbaric. Anyone can see it's barbaric.
I mean, this is so inhumane. I'm surprised it's actually allowed by law anyway.
So much.
These creatures are highly intelligent, and they shouldn't be put in these conditions where they're in caged bars. This is not the right way to treat animals. It's absolutely disgusting and cruel. And if people eating from Tesco actually saw what they were eating, they wouldn't buy it, and they would pay just a little bit more to buy animals from high welfare farms.
It just gives you joy to see the space and to see exactly how they're meant to be.
Yeah.
The little piggies are running around the way they should be,
Yeah.
free and happy piggies.
I would pay slightly more just to have pigs from that environment. And I wasn't aware of this. I'm really shocked that this is still happening in this day and age.
Yeah.
My message to Tesco is that you should never have pigs in cages. You should always let pigs be free.
I agree that they shouldn't be kept like this.
Okay.
But they're gonna die anyway, so I don't see it as a huge issue.
If you had a kid
Yeah.
and you had a choice as to what sort of life they had, you'd want to give them the best life,
Well, yeah, of course
wouldn't
I
you?
would. Yeah.
That's all we're saying.
It's a fair point, but still.
I got you.
Kind of.
I kind of got you.
Kind of.
Thanks a lot. Please sign the Farms Not Factories campaign letter urging less ethical high street food chains and supermarkets to only source high welfare meat to RSPCA assured certification or free range or organic in their own brand pork products.
To me, this shows that if people have the knowledge, they make the right decisions. And I think it's incredibly irresponsible of big businesses like the supermarkets to not listen to customers and to hide behind, oh, well, people should make their own mind up. I mean, they've got a position, they've got power, and with that power becomes responsibility. So, but we've got to stand up. We've got to say, look, we don't want this, and maybe that will make them change. So, moving on, do you want to say anything about that, Tracy?
No, I just think that, come to our website and find these films and spread them to your friends and get that message out, because people actually don't realize what's going on. They can't believe it. So we need awareness, because it ain't going to come from government and it ain't going to come from big business. It's up to us.
Yeah. So another great way to find knowledge is to use our map to click on your local producers, and you will find that they've all got pages with lots of information, and some of them have even got videos to tell their story. So here's another great celebrity influencer telling the story about meat. Another one of Tracy's videos.
I still live and work in a community where there are a lot of small scale farms, small yet often very entrepreneurial farmers creating fantastic products, creating local employment. And it's a wonderful thing to be plugged into that network. This is what's happening in the landscape around me. And it's such a fantastic landscape because that's the way it's being worked. What are we supposed to do? Do we want to turn all that into a theme park and transfer the production of all meat into vast indoor arenas? I don't want to live in that sort of world. I don't want to live in a countryside where that's the way our food is produced. I also worry about what is in effect a commitment to farm on a very large scale in order to directly compete with cheaper production elsewhere in Europe, production that the welfare standards of which would actually be illegal in this country. And I think we're living in a world where the commodification of meat is becoming a problem for society, where we're downgrading the role of meat as a food into being yet another cheap sandwich filler. And I don't think we should be going further in that direction. I think we should be understanding that meat is and always should be a precious food, and that the animals that provide it should always be treated with respect and looked after in the best possible conditions. I guess the big question underlying this whole argument is, does the world really need more cheap meat? Do we in the UK want to be producing huge volumes of cheaper meat? Is that the right direction of travel? Because everything that's happening to our health would suggest otherwise. We're eating too much meat as a society. We've got to this point where we seem to think that no meal is complete without meat, and that's just fundamentally wrong. Meat has historically been a very special food. I think we should be looking for ways of society to be consuming less meat. You know, we have obesity problems and heart disease problems that are practically an epidemic running through Western society now, and that is directly connected to the amount of meat we eat. The intensification of meat production is fundamentally unsustainable, most of all because it involves, frankly, cutting down vast swathes of virgin forest to grow things like soya to feed to the animals that go into the system. And we're already at a point where globally 30% of all arable farming is done to make feed for animals. In the US, that figure runs now at 50%. Does that sound sustainable? Is that sustainable intensification? It doesn't sound sustainable to me. The other question we should be asking now is who's running this show? Who's dictating the future of the food economy and for whose benefit? Because we've just seen something happening in the world of banking, and I'm wondering whether it's about to be repeated in the world of food, where we're talking about massive, powerful corporations manipulating the system for the benefit of themselves and their shareholders, and not necessarily for the client, who are the people who are eating the food at the end of the day. I mean, that sort of behavior may be perhaps inevitable in the world of financial services, but I think it's pretty scary if that's what's happening to our food production.
Fantastic. So we've got the knowledge, now we need trade, and our map is designed to do that. So you click on the icons, and every person who's on the map has a password to put in information so they can sell online, they can tell you about what's going on, and they can encourage you to buy food. And we then share our map with as many other organizations as possible. So here it is on Tracy's website, and here it is on Slow Food. Another great way of trading is this crop for the shop. The more food we've got growing locally and the more we trade it, the better. And if we've got schools growing food, perhaps we can use schools as our local food hub. And then buy-in, we need to get people to buy into the whole process. So we've got all these organizations using our map, and the more organizations that have the map and share the map, the better, because if we have one map that's all being shared, it's twice as powerful. So here's the Bee Farmers Association with all the honey producers, the Rare Breed Survival Trust with all rare breeds all around the country that we can find on Big Barn. And this is the British Game Alliance, and then Nourish Scotland, who promote the map in Scotland and help build it up there. So what can we all do together? Well, I tried to build a food community in my area, and here's the video that the ITV company did, ITV.
Farmer Anthony Davison's trying to grow a new concept in his village. He wants the gardeners, allotment holders and even school children in Alconbury Weston to produce their own food, then sell it within the parish, making them less reliant on big supermarkets.
Growing food, swapping it, trading it, and hopefully eventually becoming self-sufficient, and all being in touch with the seasons and buying and eating great local food.
Anthony's neighbour John has a large vegetable patch in his garden and says he could easily contribute to the scheme.
I think it's a very good idea. At the moment I give lots away, and in the summer where we've got too much fruit and vegetables, and so if it can go and bring me a bob or two back and some beer money, it can't be a bad thing, can it?
Kim Sewell runs the village pub and says she would jump at the chance to put more local produce on her menu.
Seasonal vegetables and salad. We get through a lot of salad here. So yeah, seasonal vegetables, and try and learn more about that, especially if it's locally grown.
Anthony already runs a national website that helps people find local food producers they can buy from. For his new community project, he wants vegetables and other produce to be sold within the village 15% cheaper than in supermarkets.
It's a scheme that can start small, and we can build it up and see if people are interested. But those two drivers of quality food and cheaper food should get people interested.
But if Anthony wants his chickens to contribute to the scheme, he might just have to encourage them to increase their output.
Don't worry about the eggs. That was a great project, but unfortunately the school didn't want to get involved because growing food wasn't on the curriculum. The shop wanted me to barcode everything, and then the pub closed. So we never really got it going, but we're about to have a new pub in the village, and I'm going to try and build it around the pub, so it'll be a kind of pub as the hub type thing. But that's a great thing that every community could do, and this knowledge transfer bit I mentioned before is, as a community is building in a village, then perhaps we can share knowledge and videos and help other villages set up. So what can we all do? Well, please use the map to find your local food producers, and you can register for local food news and offers. Please get on the map if you're a food business or thinking about becoming one. Please crop for the shop for your pub or restaurant. And when we get our pub going, hopefully lots of people will be growing food and they can put it on the menu, and it makes a great story. Please add the map to your website if you have a foodie website, and please sign petitions or lobby your MP. And we're now going to watch the last video, and Tracy's going to talk about it.
So as well as encouraging our followers to write to their MP to vote for the amendment, which will ban any food coming into this country which is below the standards which our farmers have to farm at in this country, we're also targeting the fast food high street restaurant chains. And Greg's was our first victim, and this is the film that we've sent them along with the letter.
Would you eat Greg's sausage roll if you knew that the pork was imported from the USA or Brazil, where industrial factory farming has far lower standards than in both the UK and EU? These pigs are reared in cruel, inhumane environments, with mother pigs unable to turn around in their pens for almost their entire lives. And who wants this in their lunch? No one. We're already winning the battle on chlorinated chicken, with many supermarkets, Nando's and Domino's rejecting low-quality US chicken. We want the same commitments to protect pigs across the world. Now, we're urging Greg's to say no to this US industrial pork. American pigs are dosed with the muscle builder drug, ractopamine, banned in 160 countries, and antibiotics on a scale 3 times that of the UK. Join people across the UK to ask Greg's to say no to animal cruelty and lower food standards. We want the Great British Sausage Roll to be truly great. Sign our petition now.
So that's just
great. If you go on our website and find these two petitions, one is to lobby your MP and the other is to lobby Greg's.
So we've got your website address there, Tracy. We've got Big Barn's address, my email if you want to ask any questions. But thank you very much for joining us today. We really need to build a more sustainable food industry, and with so little influence from government, we need to do it, and we need to push it forward. There is a food and farming policy that's coming out, but it seems that it's being ignored, and this foreign food looks like it's coming in. So let's ignore it and buy local. Thank you very much for coming, everybody, and thank you, Tracy.
Great. Thank you guys very much. That was very interesting. It looks like we have about 10 minutes for some questions. A couple questions that have come in from our audience. What certification does food from local allotments or community gardens require to be sold to local shops in the community?
We always ask people if they're going to sell any of their produce to register with the council as a grower. And but if it's fresh produce, we like them to kind of say, well, have you used any chemicals? So nearly everything is been grown to organic standards. But it is certification is a problem, because if people certify with the Soil Association, it's going to cost them a lot of money. So it's built on honesty and people doing the kind of classic registering as a producer.
Right. Okay. That's great. Another question that was raised is traditionally manure would be used. I know the video mentions the issue of environmental damage using pig manure. As it's traditionally used in farming, what is the problem with it? Is it the scale of the industrial manure processing? If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, when there are too many animals in vast barns, the farmer doesn't want to go very far to spread it out on the fields. So he spreads it out again and again on local fields, and they become drenched. And so that's when it becomes extremely bad for the flora and fauna, and of course, for the local river system. And also the local people are up in arms because the stench is unbearable. So really we need to have a limited amount of animals on the land. So even if it's pasture fed, you can't have too many animals out on the pastures, because again, you're going to get the water problem. So it's incredibly important that we eat less, but better quality meat. More expensive, so you spread the cost by eating less of it, and actually we're eating too much meat, as Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall said, so there's plenty of room for us to get more delicious vegetables and grains that are as local as possible, and then just try to find out as much as you can about where that food has come from. Try to really trust your source so you're confident, and just always revisit that source. The more local, the less middlemen, the cheaper it'll be.
And that's why sources like Big Barn are so helpful in helping to identify your community producers, 5 minutes down the road.
Yeah, and we're a not-for-profit, so everything that comes into Big Barn is spent on making it better and bigger. And the more partners we can have, the better. Going back to your slurry point, I think some of these big factory farms now have these biodigesters. So they're saying, oh, we've got a biodigester, we're using up all the slurry. But it's still got to go somewhere. And there's still always heavy rainfall and something gets washed into the river. And of course, you can't, once it's in the river, you can't get it out again. And, the water companies that are then having to extract that, and it's going in our water rates. So it's making food more expensive again, but it's all hidden away, and that mustn't happen.
Great. Thank you very much. Another question is for someone who's interested in setting up a community hub in their village, what would be the first steps? How would they get started?
Talk to the school, talk to the pub, and your local shop. Because if your local shop has a section like that shop we saw in the schools video with a poster that said crop for the shop, anything you've grown, put it here. The shop could become the hub, or the pub could become the hub, or even the school could have a little section. So it's a matter of, as I said in that video, is kind of starting it slow, finding out who in the village already grows food, and then trying to get them all together to take it all into one spot and have little festivals and things. But I'm really keen on doing videos of what each village has done. So I'm putting those on the site somewhere, so that people can go, oh, that's a good idea, I'll do that. Or, oh, no, that wouldn't work for us, but that would. So it's kind of constantly developing, and it's a great way of getting people involved.
So is it also an issue of crowdsourcing ideas very specific to those communities? Yeah, that's great. A question probably for you, Tracy. Especially in the wake of COVID, there's been a real challenge with local abattoirs and how people are accessing these. So as a small scale meat producer, how you actually go about ensuring that you have a local network of abattoirs. How can our audience support campaigns to maintain that local network? Because it's also not an issue that maybe comes first to people's minds when they think about animal welfare and sustainable meat.
It's incredibly difficult for local, small-scale, sustainable farms to survive unless they have a local slaughterhouse and a local butcher. So we've really got to revitalize these local networks of abattoirs and butchers. And that's why the revolution, the revitalization has to come from us, because actually, particularly the Tory government, are very pro-globalization, big business, and they protect the big business ways of global trade. And it's not the way we want to see our food. We live on an island. We need to protect those farmers, their skills, and we need to look after the animals so we don't have these zoonotic diseases, and we need to have the abattoirs. We've gone from something like 36,000 abattoirs in the last 10 years to 250 abattoirs. It is appalling. And this was the EU. But you know what? The people who voted Brexit, they were the ones who said, actually, we don't want this cheap imports coming in from the EU that are below our standards. But what's happened? We're getting into bed with America, which has got even worse standards, even less abattoirs. It's really a revolution that we need from the grassroots. And funnily enough, it's getting so bad that we might finally wake up and do it. And that is take back control, use the power of your purse, and only buy from your local producer. Even if that's in the hinterland of London, you can get farm drop, which can drop to your house, and it's really competitive prices, and they're small scale farms, and we need to save them now.
Great. Well, that's a great call to action. And I think these are all steps that individual consumers can make. You know, you can vote for the systems you want to support with each purchase and with each product that you buy. There are quite a few more questions. I'd love to ask many more. I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap up at 5:02. So is there anything else just very quickly in the last 2 minutes you'd like to add that hasn't been covered or you'd like to highlight to the audience?
I think there's tremendous hope in this digital age. And when we first started Big Barn, we thought, well, all people have got to do is leave the supermarket and go to the local farm shop or butcher. But it's actually easier now because a lot more people are shopping online. And to switch to your local farm shop or butcher is only one click away. So it's not a whole drive away, it's just one click on a computer. And so many more people are shopping online now. And what we need to do is just help them shop locally instead. And the one click could be a fantastic bit of pork from a little croft in Scotland, or it could just be your regular order from your local farm shop or your local village shop where people are taking their produce in as well. So I think that's what I like to say.
I think the corporations have gone to such an extreme of barbaric behavior, and it's being reported through the internet from every single side of our economy that people are beginning to wake up and are actually demanding to take back control. So it's really important that we just keep up with the conversation and with spreading the message through sending the films and congratulating the people like Viva and PETA. It doesn't really matter if you're vegan or you're vegetarian or you eat meat. It's actually all about knowing where your food comes from and making sure that those 95% of the British people that do eat meat, that they really make sure they eat it from a high animal welfare farm. So we close those factories. So we stop these zoonotic diseases, we stop the pollution, we stop the cruelty, and we actually keep more money in the local economy.
That's great. And I encourage everyone in the audience to visit the website, check out the social media, get involved with the campaigns. And I know we couldn't answer every question, so please do engage with them, because I think it's a much bigger conversation to be had. So with that, I'm afraid we're going to have to end the conversation, but thank you to both speakers for your time. It was really fascinating. And thank you to the audience for all the questions. There's plenty more to check out over the next few days with the Terra Madre weekend. So if you go to terramadrefringe.com, we have more events happening this evening as well, and Saturday and Sunday. All events are free, although we welcome any donations to keep the lights on and bring more events like this to you. So thank you very much, and hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, watching.